Let's talk about coverage of the new developments on the IRS political profiling scandal. President Obama just weighed in, saying if anyone at the tax agency did target conservative groups for extra scrutiny, they would be held accountable. And while the president is apparently outraged, there are charges that some of the news shows are skipping over the IRS story. There are even suggestions of a double standard of sorts. Take a listen.
Just imagine, Donna Brazil, if the George W. Bush administration had an IRS underling, he's out in Cincinnati, of course, saying we're going to target groups with the word progressive in their title, we would have all hell breaking loose.
Well, let's talk about it with our Fox News Watch panel today. Jim Pinkerton is contributing editor and writer for the American Conservative magazine. Alan Colmes is the host of The Alan Colmes Show and the author of Thank the Liberals for Saving America. This just broke on Friday afternoon, this IRS thing, Alan. A lot of people may have spent the weekend, hunting down Mother's Day cards and red roses and stuff, and may not be entirely aware of what's going on. But the IRS was apparently, in the wake of this Citizens United decision, when lots of groups are applying for tax-exempt status, the IRS singles out conservative groups for extra scrutiny. Your take on the way it's been covered to this point?
Well, I think, it's just emerging now. The president just spoke about it a little bit ago in a joint news conference with David Cameron, who's visiting from England. It is outrageous. George Will had it right. And if progressive groups were targeted, I would be outraged as a progressive and a liberal. And we should all be outraged, regardless of which group is targeted, because if it can happen to them, it can happen to any of us. And it is truly outrageous. And I thought the president's comments were correct today when he said that this will not stand. He will not stand for it. And we've got to find out. And by the way, apparently it was known in the IRS as early as 2011. Why did it take this long to come to light? I think that's an important question as well.
Tom Brokaw was on MSNBC this morning, apparently saying, Alan, Jim, that this is just sort of, he said, welcome to the second term, Mr. President, as though this is just another one of those things that bedevils presidents after they win re-election.
Right, and Carl Bernstein, of course, of Watergate fame, assured Morning Joe Scarborough that, well, listen, this couldn't possibly reach the White House. I mean, this is surely just a few bad apples at the IRS. I mean, this is a guy who didn't take Richard Nixon's word for it 40 years ago, and rightly so. And yet now with President Obama seems sure in advance. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of people who are saying, listen, the Boston Bombers were lone wolves, not in touch with anybody. I mean, this kind of instant certainty that this didn't go any further than the immediate malefactors is a mystery to me. I mean, but Alan had it right. It happened 2 years ago. There's lots of investigation to be done. Breitbart News this morning has a story about the IRS telling the subunit of the IRS who's doing the investigating to knock it off. That was in July of 2011. And obviously they kept at it. And the New York Times in March of 2012 was praising the IRS for being aggressive on this, as James Taranto pointed out in the Wall Street Journal. So there's a lot of string to unravel here. Let's hope the president really means it when what he said in the press conference a moment ago.
Today, the president denies there was any cover-up involved in the aftermath of the terror attacks in Benghazi last September. This following months of near silence from the mainstream media on the investigation into the Benghazi attacks. Reporters finally peppering Press Secretary Jay Carney. Listen.
Is it a stylistic change to take out all references to previous terror threats in Benghazi?
Do you acknowledge that your initial characterization of the White House's involvement was to some extent a mischaracterization of the extent to which the White House was involved in the evolution of those talks?
Kristen, I think it's really important. If this was such a minor issue, why not just tell the press like you did from the podium just a few minutes ago, instead of having this background briefing with a select few and not the whole group right now, if it's such a minor issue?
So, again, what role did the White House play, not just in making, but in directing changes that took place to these?
That was Friday. Quite a change from Wednesday, the actual day of the bombshell testimony from witnesses. It was the second story on all three of the major network news broadcasts. CBS Evening News offered the most coverage, 4 minutes 41 seconds. NBC Nightly News giving it 2 minutes 59 seconds. Got the least coverage on ABC's World News Tonight at 2 minutes 24 seconds. So, gentlemen, what about it? Has the media, Jim, finally discovered that Benghazi is a story?
I think they have. I think that they tried for months, as you said, not to ignore it. And even on Wednesday, the day of the hearings, most of the cable networks didn't cover it or didn't cover it at all. That became unsustainable when Gregory Hicks and the other witnesses proved to be so compelling and became so many obvious holes in the storyline. However, I think what you're seeing this week is the shift from dramatic under-coverage of Benghazi to ferocious counterattacking on, this is just a plot to take out Hillary Clinton. I think you saw the New York Times kind of sounding the bugle over the weekend, saying that this is really just a Karl Rove plot to win the 2016 presidential election. And I think that strategy is much more effective for them going forward if they can simply turn this into a partisan fight over the 2016 election, ignoring, of course, what happened tragically last September in Libya.
Let me read you a note from our Catherine Herridge, Alan, who's done some great reporting on this. And pardon as I show you the side of my face, but this is only available to me in the computer at this moment. The president, in his news conference this morning, said it was not immediately clear what happened in Benghazi and whether the anti-Islam video was to blame. But on 9/12 of last year, September 12th, based on the same intelligence, the head of the House Intelligence Committee told Fox News it was a premeditated commando-style attack and had nothing to do with the video. It would seem that storyline would get more carriage.
I think there was a lot of cross-information happening at the same time. I think the media is really missing the big story here, because this is not about whether it's a video or not, and when the word terror was said, which was, by the way, by the president 3 times in the 2 successive days. But how about the fact that the Wall Street Journal reported in November 2012 that this was basically not a consulate, not an embassy, but a CIA operation, and that most of the personnel there were CIA workers, and that's what this was really about. How about looking at, as Dennis Kucinich said on Fox News Sunday yesterday, our foreign policy, which had us going into Libya in the first place and removing the leader of a foreign country. That's what caused this to be in the first place. Stevens would be alive today if we didn't go into Libya militarily and take out Gaddafi.
All right, that's another question for the administration. We're going to have to leave it there. Alan Colmes, Jim Pinkerton, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.